next form is an example of a rotation schedule. Now, this is extremely important. This type of a schedule can be developed before the rotation begins and provided to the students at the very beginning. It provides information to the student about what they should be doing every day. There's information about when assignments are due, where the student should be at a given time. You may notice at the very bottom of the calendar, it tells the students that they have rounds every morning at 8 o'clock and that they meet with the preceptor every day at 3 o'clock, so they can be held accountable to be in those locations. This is a schedule for 2 students, which this is a basic template, so it designs the students to be listed as student A or student B. But it would be very easy at the start of each rotation to simply do a find and replace in Word and substitute student A for the student's name and student B for the other student's name. So using a template like this can easily be modified at the beginning of a rotation with simply the student names and dates changed to be more specific. You can also see with this type of a schedule, it notifies the students that on every Thursday they're going to have to turn in their SOAP forms for evaluation. So they know Wednesday is going to be a day to make sure their SOAPs are all well caught up. It also indicates that on Fridays they'll be taking memory quizzes, so they know to make sure they're ready for those memory quizzes on Fridays. If you look at the Friday of the first week, it indicates that an in-service topic needs to be okayed for student A. So they're expected to give an in-service to a nursing unit. They have to come up with a topic and discuss with nurses what they might be interested in to determine a good topic for that assignment. That needs to be approved by the preceptor by the first Friday. You'll notice on the third week, on Monday, it lists that student A as the in-service due. So with this schedule, the student knows that by Friday of the first week, they have to arrange a topic with a nursing station for an in-service, and that they will be expected to have completed that in-service by Monday of the third week. This gives them some flexibility to arrange that in-service with the nursing staff. The bottom line is that this type of a schedule, especially if it's printed as a calendar like this, makes it very clear to the students where they should be, when things are going to be due, and it helps them to plan out to make sure that they're able to complete all the expectations by the set time. It also makes it much easier for the preceptor to communicate to students what the expectations are. So students aren't constantly asking the preceptor, what should I be doing today? The content of a rotation manual or syllabus is also a very important consideration. All the things that we've been talking about, the various types of documentation forms, assessment tools, the instructions that students might need to complete a particular assignment, policies and procedures, should all be collated into a manual or a syllabus that can be given to students. Again, this prevents the need for the preceptor to be providing this information constantly during the rotation, either verbally or otherwise. It makes it much less draining on the preceptor, and it makes it easier for the preceptor to hold the students accountable for this information. So the type of information that should go into this manual or syllabus is, first of all, the learning outcomes. That's what everything revolves around in advanced practice experience rotation. So the learning outcomes need to be defined as the first step, and the student should understand what those learning outcomes are. The student should understand the rotation requirements and assignments, everything that he or she will be expected to do during the rotation, whether it's giving in-services, writing drug information reports, whether it's soaping patients. All of that should be clearly identified as to the requirements of successfully completing the rotation. The assessment and grading practices. Students should understand very clearly how their grades will be determined. Any form that's used to assess an assignment or an activity should be provided in the manual. Again, the value of these assessment tools is not only to guide the preceptor to grade fairly and objectively, but also to notify the student what's important about the assignment. They can simply scan the assessment form to see what the major criteria are and what the rating scale is. And hopefully this will enable them to perform at a higher level and better achieve the expectations of the preceptor. Policies and expectations should be very clear. Such policies as what time students should show up, how they should dress, what they should do if they're going to be absent, who they should contact, and what the expectations are in terms of absences during the rotation. All this should be defined. And as we mentioned yesterday, during session 2, what's important is that if it's at all possible, policies and procedures and expectations should be standardized across the rotations for a given program. This enables the students to become accustomed to the same types of policies from rotation to rotation. And there's less chance for misinterpretation because a policy at one rotation differs from a policy at a previous rotation. The schedule of and the calendar of activities is also very important. We just presented an example of that. This can alleviate the burden on the preceptor and also provide more guidance to the student and decrease the likelihood that a student might feel as though they don't know what they should be doing at any given time. All forms that are used, examples should be provided so students have access to it. Whether it's a monitoring form or an assessment form, they should receive a copy up front that they can refer to at any time. The information about the site, any unique information about the site, and contact information is also very important. The preceptor might want to supply a cell phone or some other means of contacting the preceptor or other people in the hospital or in the pharmacy department. That information should be provided to the students. And lastly, any resources or required readings that the students would find beneficial. If there are certain topics that students are going to be expected to delve into in more detail, a particular disease state or a particular activity, to provide an article or some type of background information might be very useful. And that should be provided in the manual or the syllabus. So the students have that information with them with all the other information that's been provided. And anything else that the preceptor thinks might be of value, it's better to be safe than sorry and include that information in the manual. Now, I'd like to show you an example from a manual. One of my pet peeves with consultants that come in and make recommendations about how things should be done. In this case, I'm providing guidance as to how to construct a rotation. One of my pet peeves is that consultants come in and they suggest a lot of work. And certainly to put together a rotation is a lot of work. Sometimes when I was a pharmacy director, I would wonder if the people consulting with us and telling us that all the work that we need to do, if they had ever done it themselves, because it seems like if they had done it themselves, they wouldn't suggest it to us. I'm providing you with suggestions about activities that I have engaged in myself. When I suggest that you prepare a manual, I prepared manuals for my rotations. And I'm going to show you as an example the very first rotation manual that I put together in 1982, because it was a lot of work. Not only did it include all the information we've been discussing, but back in 1982, my pharmacy did not have a personal computer. We didn't get one until a couple of years later. And certainly, there was no such thing as Microsoft Word. Microsoft Office didn't exist yet. So the manuals back in 1982 had to be typewritten. So it was a lot more work than it would be even for you today. This manual on the right illustrates the table of contents. You can see 17 pages of typewritten information that we provided to the students who came to the Medical College of Ohio rotations. We included in appendices detailed information about things like patient monitoring and the case presentation. But all this information that we've been talking about was provided in a manual, a lengthy manual, 17 pages plus many pages of appendices. So it was worth doing. It was a lot of work, but it saved a lot of time down the road once students began the rotations.